Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're back with my monthly sponsored video from Plex. And this month we're going to look at installing a Plex server on network attached storage. We're going to look at Synology devices here along with a WD MyCloud, so you can see what the installation process is like and how to get everything set up to work correctly on your particular device. And what's nice about using network attached storage is that you don't have to dedicate a computer to the task. And we'll talk about some of the things you should look for in a network attached storage device if you want to go in this direction as well. So lots to cover here. But before we get into the video, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that this is a paid sponsorship from Plex. However, they are not reviewing this content before it is uploaded, and all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Now, I should also add that the Synology NAS that we'll have in this video is on loan from Synology, so it goes back to them when we're done. And also, Synology and WD were past sponsors here on the channel, but are not sponsoring this video, only Plex. So let's get into it now and get Plex going on this device. Now, I want to begin on the spec sheet for this Synology NAS because you do need to kind of get an idea as to what the NAS's capabilities are before you jump into this. So you can see here that we've got an Intel Celeron J3455 in this particular NAS device. Your mileage, of course, will vary. Now, Plex will run on a whole bunch of different platforms, but only the Intel devices that support Intel's QuickSync technology are going to support something called hardware transcoding, which I think is very important for a Plex server. Because if you leave your home and you want to watch some movies on your phone while you're away, the hardware transcoding will make that possible. The device can very quickly spin up a compressed version of the video you have stored so you can watch it remotely. Devices powered by ARM processors can't do this as effectively, and you might be waiting a long time before that video starts up. So to some degree, depending on what you're going to do, the need for an Intel processor is important. Now, if you're just watching media in your home and you're not needing to transcode the video into smaller formats or different formats, then you can definitely work with Plex on a lower powered device, because at that point it's just transferring the video back and forth with no conversion being done to it. But if you need to do any of that, having Intel QuickSync is going to be really important. So this particular Celeron processor on this particular NAS is a J3455. And I'm just going to do a quick Google search here on that processor, and generally you'll get brought probably to the Intel page on some of the first results here. You can see you even got one of my videos there on the Google search result. We're going to go over here to this Intel link, and what we want to look for on here is QuickSync. I'm just going to do a quick search for QuickSync video, and you can see here on this product listing that Intel QuickSync video on this processor is supported, which means that this NAS will be able to do hardware transcoding. Now, this one's a little expensive at around $650, but you can get a 2-drive version of this particular Synology NAS for about $300, and there are other options out there that will run you around that price. Now, I want to go over to the desktop on our Synology interface here, and normally what you would do is go over to their package center and install an app through their library. So I'm just going to go ahead here and type in Plex, and you'll see that Plex is available to install. However, the version of Plex that is on the Synology App Store often runs a few versions behind what is the current version. So I always recommend folks actually do a manual installation of the Plex media server. So I'm going to show you where to find that. And by extension, we'll also see what NAS devices are supported by Plex as we start poking around on here. So what you want to do is go to the Plex.TV homepage and just go over to the Get Plex option here. So we're going to click on that. And then what you want to do is click on Plex Media Server right here, and that will give us some options. So you can see we've got the usual computer options here: Windows, Mac, Linux, or BSD. But what we want to look for in this instance is Synology, but you can see some of the other devices that are supported by Plex. Again, the hardware transcoding will be supported only on Intel-based devices. By the way, if you are not buying a WD MyCloud PR2100 or PR4100, you'll also need a Plex Pass to get hardware transcoding. But in this case, we've got a Synology NAS. We're going to select that. And then we're being asked to choose a package. And this is where things can get a little complicated, but they try to help you out a bit. This particular device is running with an Intel 64-bit processor, so that's what I'm going to choose. Remember, there are ARM versions of Synology NAS devices out there that cost less. Plex will support those, but remember, you're going to have some hardware transcoding issues with those. But just know that you would select one of these for your particular NAS device, and they do give you some guidance here as to which series will go with which ARM version of their server application. But we're going to click on Intel 64-bit, and it's going to download this SPK file to my downloads directory, and that's basically the app. And we're just going to go back to the Synology page here, and instead of clicking install, we're going to go to manual install. It will then ask us to upload the file. So I'm going to browse to my downloads folder and just grab that file here real quick and click next. And when we do that, what will happen here is it will go ahead and install the Plex media server for us. And I'm going to let this process, and when it's done, we'll come back and see what our next steps are. Now, because we are doing a manual install here, you're going to get a warning after the package is uploaded that it's from an unknown publisher. We're going to say yes because we know we got this directly from the Plex website. And then it gives you an overview of what you're about to do. So we're going to install the Plex media server. You'll notice here that the version number is higher than what they have on the App Store for Plex. So the Plex Package Center has 1.13. We're 1.15. So this is a newer version that we got directly from Plex. And in a few minutes, I'll show you how to do the upgrades as they come out, because you'll always get the upgrade from Plex directly first before it's going to show up on your NAS's Package Center or App Store. I'm going to click Apply now, and that's going to get the installation process going. And this won't take all that long, and when it's done, we can start setting up our file shares and getting some media pointed at this Plex server. All right, so we've got the Plex media server now installed on the Synology NAS here. We're going to jump back to the interface and just verify that. So if you look here on the list of installed applications, the Plex media server is there. That version we were referencing earlier, 1.15, is the one that we've got here. Plex will actually update you when there are new versions available, and typically the link that you'll get for that update will take you right into the file that you can then just re-upload. And we're going to do that with the WD MyCloud NAS when I demo that in a minute. But the upgrade process is identical to the installation process. It will leave all of your data and your files in place, but it will update the server application when you run that upload. Now, what will happen after the installation might vary depending on the NAS device that you're using, but with this particular device, the Synology devices, you're going to see some things added to the mix. So we're going to jump over to the control panel real quick to show you what those things are. I'm going to go to Shared Folder, and what Plex does on the Synology devices at any rate is install a dedicated Plex file share. So it will actually set up a place for you to store your media. You can, of course, point it at different directories, but you may have to set some permissions for that. Let's click on Edit here to see what those permissions are. So if I look at the Plex file share that was just created, it made a file share that's available to the admin user, and then it also created a new user called Plex that is able to access that directory as well. And the reason is that Plex is running even when you are not logged in, and that Plex server, or Plex user, I should say, has access to the Plex server so that you can watch media from your NAS device on your apps and everything else. So that user is custom just for that particular usage, and you can see here it's got a custom check mark there. I wouldn't touch this Plex user. I would just maybe verify that it doesn't have access to things you don't want it to have access to. So if we jump out of here for a second and go back to my Lon folder here, you will see that the Plex user, although it is available to use that folder, doesn't have access to it. And that is important maybe just to verify, but we have verified that. I'm going to go back here though and go back to the permissions, because I do want to allow some users to be able to add media to my Plex server over the network. So I'm going to give the Lon.TV account here read-write access along with Kira. And now we'll be able to add files to that directory or delete them if we want, which I think is important if you do plan to grab some media and just install it by copying it over the network. Now, before we jump into the Plex interface, I actually want to add some folders to that new Plex file share so that we have a place for our media to go. So I'm going to click on the file station here on the NAS, although I could just as easily go in through my file share on Windows or Mac. So you have a couple different ways you can do this, but since I'm logged into the Synology NAS already, I figured it would be easier just to load up File Station to do some of this file management. And if I go into that Plex share and I go and right click, I can create a new folder. I'm going to call this TV Shows. And I think I'm going to create another folder here as well called Movies. So let's go just right-click again here and create another folder called Movies here. And now that I've got those installed, we can go ahead and load up the Plex interface. So let's get started with that. All right, so back to the Synology interface. We're going to click on the little Start menu here and go to Plex Media Server. It's now going to open up a new browser tab, and I'm going to just log into my new server here. So you will see this screen when you first pop it on, and it's going to give you a brief overview as to how things work. We're going to give it a friendly name, and I'm just going to have it be the name of my Synology server. And then it's also going to give you access to your media outside your home if you want to enable that. So we're going to click Next and get going with that. Now the next thing is we have to create our media libraries, and we're going to start off with some TV shows. So I'm going to click Add and go to TV shows here. We're going to call it TV shows. I'm going to then click over to Add Folders. Now here is where we can browse for our folders, and one of the things that gets confusing on these NAS devices is where to put your media, because remember, we saw that Plex file share a minute ago, but we're not seeing that in here. Now what's happening here is that the Plex user can see things that typically the NAS doesn't show to users with the native apps that are running on it. Remember, Plex is running in its own browser window here. It's its own thing, even though it's running on this box. And as a result, we're going to see things that are not typically visible to NAS users. It may look a little daunting at first, but once you start digging a little bit deeper, you can find what you're looking for. And this is going to vary based on how you have your device set up. But when I first built out my Synology volume, you can check out my how-to video we did a few days ago. We called my overall device volume, Volume 1. And if I click on that, you'll start to see things that might look a little bit more familiar. Now, you've got a bunch of these little @ directories, which are things that the Synology NAS uses for keeping track of your files. But once we get past all of those, you can see now we've got the file shares we saw a little bit earlier on the Synology interface. And this is going to be something you'll encounter as well on the WD drive. I'll show you that when we shift over to that platform. And here's that Plex folder that we had Plex create for us when the package was installed. We're going to click on that, and look at this. Here's that TV shows folder that I just made. I'm going to click on Add now, and that will get us going here. So let's click on Add Library. And I have no files in this library at the moment, but let's put something in that folder to get going. So what I've got here is the Synology interface yet again, and what I want to do is just go ahead and get another file station window up here. And again, you can replicate what I'm about to do here using your computer over the network if that is easier. We're going to go over to some stuff that I grabbed from my DVR on my other device here. This is the TV show Manifest. I'm going to just copy that folder of TV show videos to this particular directory. And then when that is done copying, we should be able to see that in our Plex library. So let's let this copy now, and when this is done, we should start seeing those videos populated on Plex. Okay, so we've got our first round of media copied over to the Plex TV show directory. Let's jump back to Plex and click on TV shows. Now you'll see here it's saying that there's nothing in the library because right now it's not set to scan automatically. So we'll do a quick scan here, a manual scan, and just get it to pick up Manifest, and there we go, it's found it, and it will start jumping in with all that metadata and all the thumbnail images. Now while that's going, if you want to set up your directories to automatically scan, the best way to do that is to go into the gear icon here in the upper right hand corner and go over to Library, and you can have it scan your libraries automatically so that when new files are uploaded to those directories, it will automatically refresh your Plex library. And that's probably the best way to go because you'll want to have access to that media once it's copied in there without having to manually trigger it via the web interface. So if we go back to home now, you can see that Manifest has been added. I can jump around here to all the episodes and start watching one of them if I want, and we are ready to go here with our Plex server, and this server will also be available to all the devices that I am logged into Plex with as well. So we're pretty much done here. You can, of course, add more libraries and point them at more folders to get moving. but you do probably want to turn on that hardware transcoding, which is not on by default, even on an Intel-based device like this one. So we're going to jump back into the settings screen here one more time, and we're going to go over to Transcoder, which is right here on the left-hand side. And when I click on that, we're not going to see much here because we have to get the advanced menu summoned. So we're going to click on Show Advanced, and you're going to see now we have an option here to use hardware acceleration when available. This is not a default position, so you want to enable that and click on Save Changes. But this change is not automatically going to take effect when you click on Save. We actually have to restart the Plex server on the NAS in order to make that happen. So we're going to jump back over to the Synology interface real quick. I'm going to go back to the Package Center, click on Installed, and we'll wait for the Plex Media Center here to get its status. You can see that it's running. I'm going to click Stop Now, and now I'm going to confirm that, and then I'm going to start it back up again once it has stopped, and that will basically reboot the Plex server without having to reboot the NAS, and our hardware transcoder will now be available to us provided the device we're using is compatible. So that is the setup for a Synology device, and I wanted to briefly just show you the process on a different device like a WD MyCloud. This is the PR2100 that we did a review on a little while back, and the process here is very similar. You go over to the Plex page here, you go to get the Plex app on your device. We once again click on the Plex Media Server. We select the drive that we're using here, which is a Western Digital, and then we choose our package. Now remember, the MyCloud PR2100 and PR4100 will have hardware transcoding support without the need for a Plex pass. It's one of the features of those devices there. I'm just going to select the PR2100 here. It's going to download that to my computer, and once that download is done, I'll show you how to install it on the WD. So here we are on the WD MyCloud homepage, and we're going to click on Apps, and just like we did on the Synology, we're going to install the app manually. I'm going to select this here, and then we'll point it at that package that we downloaded for the PR2100. I'm going to click Open, and what will happen here is it's going to upload it. Now, in my case here, because I have the Plex Media Server already installed on this device, it's asking me to reinstall it. And this is the same process you'll follow when you go to do an upgrade of Plex. I'm going to click on OK, and it's going to install that in place. Again, it's going to retain my libraries and my data and everything else, so this is a non-destructive upgrade usually. If you're doing this for the first time, it will just install the software and have it run every time the device boots up. You'll get a note here saying that everything was installed successfully, so we are good to go here, and that's the process. Pretty simple. You can verify that it's installed and running here just by clicking on the Plex Media Server that you'll see on your list of apps that are installed. And you can, of course, go to the web interface by going to Configure, or you can just go to Plex.TV. But I did want to show you what the file structure on the WD looks like so you can know where to look for your shared folders. So here is the interface to my WD MyCloud Plex server, and I'm just going to go over to my Kid Shows directory here to give you an idea as to how the WD MyCloud organizes its files. So we'll take the library there and go to Add Folders and then click on Browse. And what's nice about the WD is that you see all of your file shares right here on the left-hand side. There's a little less digging to have to go through. You do see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of the NAS here on the home folder, but you will be able to very quickly find what you're looking for just by clicking on the file share and digging down from there. So a little bit easier on the WD to find what you're looking for initially, but overall a very similar process to what we just experienced here on the Synology. And now that these things are set up, we can start playing around with adding more media, getting our library set up. Now, one last quick note, and that relates to the DVR feature on Plex. It really needs hardware transcoding to work effectively. So when you're out shopping for a NAS, remember, you got to get one of those Intel processors with quick sync support Otherwise, your experience will not be a good one. So just bear that in mind and add that factor to your planning when you're looking at speccing out a NAS for your Plex serving needs. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. I want to thank Plex for their continued support of the channel, and let me know if I can answer any more questions for you down in the comments below. That might result in a future video in our continuing series on this topic. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Chris Allegretta, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.